Gents, 48 hours has passed since the Saracens game. We said after the game we wouldn't sugarcoat it. 71-17. How have those 48 hours gone since? What has happened in that time?
There's been a number of conversations. There's been meetings between senior players, meetings with coaches. We've had our first day training today, trying to pick through what happened, trying to remove as much as possible in a situation like this, remove the emotion from the situation to look at the cold hard facts of what happened. So then you get stuff comes out like first half we enter their 22 9 times, we scored 0 points. They enter our 22 6 times, they score 6 tries. So ultimately the game always gives you the feedback. We can't hide from it. As we said, we're not going to sugarcoat it, but our red zone efficiency, what we did to put ourselves in that area of the pitch is good. What we did when we got there was nowhere near good enough. The way that we executed was nowhere near good enough. So I say as much as possible in our sport and with a 6-day turnaround, we can either put our head down, kick stones and try and bury our head in the sand and run away from it, or we can face the facts straight on and then we can choose our response. It's a good test of resilience, it's a good test of all these things to how quickly we can turn around and deliver a performance this weekend against Quins.
Yeah, before we go on to the emotion of that and how that emotion is different, you said about the 9 entries into the 22 kickable opportunities, but we went for the corner, we went for the jugular. Who makes those decisions? Do you make them on field as a team? And why were those decisions made?
So we'll be talking all through the game. Myself and Danny will be talking through the game as well, but ultimately the decisions lie with me. And we'd said before the game that we wanted to be aggressive. We wanted to be aggressive with our decision making, and that's what we did. The first line out, 5 metres out, we go down the front, nearly score, they pull it down, we get a penalty. Thereafter we can't execute our line out, and then we can't execute our red zone. So again, we've spoken about the decisions. I think in the context of the game and what we wanted to do, I think they probably were the right decisions to be aggressive, but absolutely the execution wasn't good enough.
The emotion side, we've definitely seen a change in emotion from what it was on Sunday to what it is now. Can you, Josh, talk me through that emotional change and how we've had to change to be able to move forward?
Obviously it's very raw. As soon as you come off the pitch, you're immediately trying to debrief it in your own head. And then as time goes on, you deal with it, everyone deals with it differently. I think go home, replay the game 100 times in your head, but wake up Sunday morning and you've actually got to make sort of a real effort to get on and move on and sort of debrief that properly. Us as senior players, coaches, had numerous meetings throughout Monday, trying to work out not necessarily what happened in the game, but just how best we come out and attack this week. It can't just be another week of let's go after Quins, we've got to address things. So we've had good meetings, and then as those meetings happen, you deal with it better. You share that sort of responsibility around the squad, because it becomes a very lonely place. You leave the game on your own, go home to your family, and you deal with that with your family. Or for some lads on their own, in their own flat. So you deal with that on their own, and then as that day, the 24 hours, 40 hours, you start slowly coming back into groups, slowly coming back as a squad, whole organisation, and then you can sort of shoulder that whole responsibility of how we're going to go attack the week as a whole. And I think by the end of yesterday, we had a really clear idea of a senior player group of how we wanted today to look, sort of collaborate that with coaches and staff, and then we come in with a real mindset of how we're going to address the squad. And I think today's been really good. Had some pretty brutal conversations, brutal meetings, brutal previews, but honestly the hunger for boys to just get back out, sort of double down and get back on the pitch to right these wrongs was unbelievable today, and we couldn't have got there quicker. Had a good day, and I feel like we can now sort of draw a line to go, right, we're going after Quins now, and really sort of think about how we could take them apart and impose ourselves. It sounds like we've moved on pretty quick, but you have to. If we start dwelling on that into tomorrow, we have a terrible training day tomorrow, and then all of a sudden we're a slow start to the game on the weekend. So I think we've sort of been able to draw a line in the sand now and really think, right, we're going after Quins and look forward to a good day's training tomorrow.
How important have those conversations been to be honest, to be brutal at times if you need to, and what sort of conversations are they about revealing all the secrets that go on in the leaders' meeting?
Yeah, they're massively important. I think it's a fine balance. You can either almost completely park it, not even review the game, and just think, right, it's a blip, and then we move on, but we don't get better from that. Or we could overthink it and get almost too emotional from the loss, and then almost hijack ourselves by going into the game against Quins too emotional because we're so hurt. So I think it's that fine balance, and that's what we've spoken about. Actually, we do need to go into the detail. We need to show pictures of why our game plan is working, but it's the execution that's letting us down at the moment. Like Charlie said, we're giving ourselves the opportunities. 9 entries into 22 against Saracens, who I think before our game had only had 18 entries across their 3 previous games. And it's we're doing the right things, but how do we take it to that next level? And I think it's as simple as you've just got to work harder at those things in training. We've got to be fully into it. We can't let a training session go by and let a conversation go by without having it. And we've got to be pretty honest with ourselves in terms of how we want to and how we can get better.
It's not a case of no effort being put in. There was a tremendous amount of effort on Sunday. Does it hurt when that's questioned?
Yeah, because that's the fundamental. If we're not willing to work hard, we've got enormous problems. So I absolutely trust every single player, member of staff in this organisation, that work rate, I won't question work rate. And actually, if there are moments, those are the things that get come down on the hardest. So yeah, that hurts. If effort gets questioned, you can question decision making and execution all day, and that's what we spend time on the training pitch trying to improve. But the day that the efforts go on is we're done.
I think that's the thing in this league. I think effort is, you can all give max effort, but that's the bare minimum that you can get. The rest is that finer detail and what we need to be doing out there or in the meetings, and that's where we're going to get it.
In terms of this week then, looking ahead to Quins, does there have to be a change in terms of preparation from what it was last week, or does the result not come into it in terms of preparation?
I think you'd be mad to try and do the same thing again and expect a different result. So it's about understanding that it's not about changing how we play, it's not about changing the game model or what we're going to try and achieve, but the way that we prepare has to look different, because otherwise why should the end product look any different? So I would expect training tomorrow to be at an intensity higher than it was last week. I would expect the way that we hold ourselves around the training ground and the way that we talk to each other to be at a higher intensity than it was last week, because otherwise what's gonna change? And already today I've seen signs of that from some of the conversations in meetings. And today's a light day for us training wise. We're still 48 hours out from the game, but I expect to see those spikes, that spike in intensity, I say particularly in our big day tomorrow.
And that's the thing, it's a 6-day turnaround this time, so tomorrow, a 2nd day training, is our only big day. So we've got Captain's Run, which might be a tiny little spike, but the things that we need to get out of ourselves and out of our training is tomorrow. So that's why you just can't waste it on these weeks.
Yeah, the belief in each other to get the best out of each other, that remains, right? That there is nothing, no trust has been lost within that group. Just want to reiterate that.
Yeah, hugely. Yeah, I don't think there's not even a trust within the whole staff, the game plan. I think we've just looked today at why we probably let ourselves down within the game plan a little bit. We talked about work effort. It's not necessarily about people not working hard enough. It's just where we're working and how smart we're working. No, I think personally, for me anyway, after a result like that, it's all about how I get my big session in that week. Today's a light session, get a bit of detail into us of what we want to do this week, but tomorrow is where I in my head I really sort of right the wrongs. I can go after tomorrow, put my body on the line in an intense session and really make sure that I'm prepped for the weekend.
How important is it to not get carried away with a result like that, not have knee-jerk statements from each other, and in how honest you are with each other, like how important is it to stay grounded but hit this week's front on.
I think we like those sort of conversations. We're getting good as a group to know that they're not personal. Like to have those conversations to know that we're all just doing it for the better of the team. There's been a few things highlighted this week. A few people got highlighted for different things we can work on. But it's not a case of like you're letting the team know. It's just like these are things that we can work on, and people take that because it's for the better of the team. If we can get that right, then it means we can almost train at a really high intensity. Conversation can happen. We can continue training at that intensity, not dipping off because we get a bit personal.
And that's just not just players. Like we as players are still growing and learning how to challenge coaches to be better, and they just like they're challenging us to be better. Like we want the best for everyone. So if we feel like we're not getting enough out of a certain drill, a certain session, we'll be going to the coach and talking to them, and that's where these conversations, like Josh said, it's nothing personal, but we just want to get better as a club and better as a team going forward.
You can see the amount of care, even though the posts from the fan base are split, shall we say, more so after the weekend. You can see the amount of care there, but there's a tremendous amount of care in here as well, and I guess there's that need to be together within this group, but also with the fan base as well.
I think, yeah, so we, in the same way that the fans feel the emotion of the loss, we obviously feel that emotion. The difference is that we're the ones that can do something about it. So we've got a responsibility to them and to ourselves to make sure that we don't, as we've spoken about a few times, that we don't continue to ride that emotion, because nothing good will come. So of course, I'd probably be more upset if they didn't care, if they just felt sorry for us, and like the fact that they do care is the same as us. But as I said, the difference is that we're the ones now that have got to grab it and do something about it and make a difference. So, so it was good to see the rec sold out. Thank you for everyone's support, and please don't for 1 second ever think that don't take a view of us looking forward to the next game as a lack of care for what's happened before, because as Josh said, when you go home to your family, it hurts just as much for us as it hurts for everyone that sits in the stand or watches us at home.
You 100% empathise with them and stuff, and feel their pain as well, but you get caught up with their emotion too much. That's not going to give us long-term success. That's going to give us a knee-jerk reaction potentially at the weekend, but then you don't want to just go up just to go back down again. Like we want to be sustainable in terms of our success and the way we're playing. We don't just want to win a one-off game because we got spanked the week before.
James, thank you for your time. I really appreciate the honesty that you've shared with us today.